Good evening, everyone. My name is Maureen McCarthy, and I have the privilege of being the president of the Friends of the School of Education at Salem State University. On behalf of the Friends, I would like to welcome you here tonight to Dr. Melito Connor's Self-Care Workshop, Part 2 of 4. Dr. Melito Connors is a specialist in many areas. She has a degree in counseling. She has done some theater work, but her real specialty is self-care and how we can be better at making sure that we are all well, particularly mentally well. The name of this evening's part is the intersection of trauma, resilience, and self-care. Again, this is part 2 of 4. We had a wonderful time with part 1. This one sounds to me a little more in-depth, and the focus is really trauma and resilience. Dr. Melito Connors, Dr. MC as we know her, has a website. She does a podcast. She has launched a shop on her website, and we can give you those that information at some point here today. We can put a link in the chat. Again, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Teresa Melito Connors, Dr. MC, with the intersection of trauma, resilience, and self-care. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for that introduction, and good evening. Thank you for joining me here today. I am also a Salem State alum. That master's degree that Maureen mentioned, the degree in counseling, is from Salem State University. I graduated in 2011 with my master's in school counseling, and then went on to earn my PhD from Lesley University in 2019 on self-care and renewal for leaders and teachers. So today, as Maureen said, we're going to talk about the intersection of trauma, resilience, and self-care. Okay, and as Maureen mentioned, tonight is part 2 of 4. So if you missed part 1, where we really talked about developing our own self-care and evaluating our self-care and building a sustainable routine, that is available to watch on the Salem State website, and we'll make sure that a link gets put in the chat, but it's the same place where you registered for this evening's workshop. So you'll be able to see that. So you can watch that. And this one will also be available as well. And then we do have part 3 coming up in March, where we'll talk about a growth mindset and how to develop a growth mindset and why that's important. And then finally, session 4, which is in April, we're going to be looking at examining explicit bias and microaggressions and the power of our language. So lots of cool topics that we're covering. So let's just dive right in. What is trauma? Well, the definition of trauma is typically a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. It can be a singular event or a series of events. It's typically considered something that is outside of the realm of like typical human experience. So something that almost anyone would find traumatic. And it can be a stressful occurrence or something that causes stress to or threat to one's life or integrity or children or spouse or family, friends, even witnessing something traumatic, even an accident or a sudden act of destruction of someone's home or property, or an act of violence or seeing someone injured. So there's lots of things that can actually go into defining what is trauma. And it's important to remember that you don't get to define what is traumatic for somebody else, and that 2 people could actually have the same experiences, but have very different reactions. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is. This is one of my favorite quotes about trauma, and it comes from Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. If you're not familiar with him and you're interested in learning more about trauma, I encourage you to read his book called The Body Keeps the Score. He's pretty much considered like the main doctor that developed the diagnosis for PTSD, and he has done tremendous work in this field. So this quote here is just important to remember. Traumatized people chronically feel unsafe inside their bodies. It's almost like the past is alive and they can feel that in their body. So they almost learn to hide from themselves. So how do we measure trauma? How do we know that something is traumatic? Well, typically when we talk about children and we talk about trauma, we think about the ACE scores, or the adverse childhood experiences. And this was something that was developed back in 1995 to 1997. It was the first study on adverse childhood experiences. And it actually still remains one of the largest investigations into childhood abuse and neglect and household challenges that can equal later in life challenges. Over 17,000 folks participated in that very first study with the CDC. And there were some really interesting findings that came out of it. But first, all of the questions that were asked on the ACE study, and there were only 10, they referred to the first 18 years of someone's life in 3 major categories. It looked at abuse, household challenges, and neglect. And the findings from this first study were that childhood trauma was very common, even in employed white middle-class college-educated people with great health insurance. They also found that there's a direct link between childhood trauma and the adult onset of chronic disease, as well as depression, suicide, being violent, or being a victim of violence. They also noted that trauma increased the risk of health, social, and emotional problems. And lastly, that people rarely experience only one type of trauma. Rarely is it only sex abuse or only verbal abuse. Usually there's a combination. So the CDC creates this nice little conceptual framework for us where we can see what they're talking about. So if we look at the base of the pyramid, our generational embodiment or historical trauma, and then we can see how that works its way up to having an adverse childhood experience, which could disrupt the neurodevelopment, which could lead to social, emotional, and cognitive impairments, which could result in the adoption of risky behavior, which could lead to disease, disability, or social problems, and ultimately could lead to an early death. Now, this is not to say that somebody who experienced trauma is going to die young. This is just an indicator of early risk, of an elevated level of risk. I think it's important for people, and this is not to make anybody feel bad or certainly be triggering to anybody, but if you're interested in this, I suggest that you take the ACE test. And if you want tonight's resources, you can visit my website at drmcselfcare.com/resources. I just threw that link in the chat for you, and you can request a copy of tonight's resources, which will include some links for follow-up study. So this first one, I'll include a link to an online version of the ACE score. Again, not something you have to do, but I think it's helpful to know kind of where we're at and if that's comfortable for you. So the first, I'm going to give you an example of what an ACE question looks like. This is actually the first question from the ACE. Before your 18th birthday, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often swear at you, insult you, put you down, or humiliate you, or act in a way that made you feel afraid you may become physically hurt? If that's a yes, then you would get 1 point. If it's a no, no points. Obviously, the more yeses you have, those are your ACE scores. So the closer you are to 10, the higher your ACE score. The closer you are to 0, the lower your ACE score. Again, just an indicator of greater risk, certainly not the same experience for everyone. And in the interest of full disclosure, because I don't like to ask people to do things that I wouldn't do myself, I actually have a rather high ACE score myself due to some unfortunate childhood experiences. But we're going to talk about how we can also overcome those and how best to build ourselves up so we can kind of overcome those situations. So ACE is not perfect, by the way. So some things are missing from it. And if you go through the test, you may find that you have some thoughts as well on it. Like, I don't think some of the questions, in my opinion, are open to interpretation. And it doesn't take into account any stressors outside of the household. So like the outside environment, it doesn't take into effect any protective factors or supportive relationships, community skills, and things like that, community services. And it doesn't take into account any individual differences. So once again, not all children who experience multiple ACEs will have poor outcomes, just as not all children who experience no ACEs will avoid poor outcomes. It's just an indicator of greater risk. This statistic is the most recent one I could find from 2013. If you're wondering how Massachusetts stacks up in this, 38.8% of children, so nearly 40% of children in Massachusetts have at least one ACE score, and about 16% have more than one. And again, this was 2013. That has only increased, would be my guess. And this pandemic isn't helping also, because this is actually a collective trauma that we're all experiencing. So right now, everybody's nervous system is a little bit heightened. Our hormone levels and things are a little off balance from where they should be, because we're all experiencing this really challenging time. So we're going to take our first self-care break together. I have systematically built in self-care breaks because I recognize that some of this is difficult to talk about, and I want people to make sure they're taking care of themselves throughout the presentation. So we're going to just do some basic deep breathing. If you do nothing else for self-care, just breathe. Deep breathing is one of the easiest, most efficient, effective ways you can care for yourself. So if it's comfortable for you, I invite you to place one hand on your chest and one on your belly. And again, do what feels good. If you like to close your eyes or maybe just lower your gaze, I invite you to do that. And we're going to take a nice big deep breath in through our nose and an exhale through our mouths. Make the exhale longer than the inhale. That helps stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system and really helps us activate a quicker sense of calm. So let's do 3 rounds together. So let's take a nice big deep breath in through the nose. Let that belly fill all the way, and a nice long exhale. And let's do that one more time, in through the nose. And a nice long exhale. And one last time. Great. Free, super effective. There's you can get more creative with your breathing exercises. We're just going to do that basic one tonight. But if this is something you find really works for you, you can certainly look up other breathing techniques. I do share more on my Instagram pages and blogs, and we talk about them on the podcast as well. So certainly other resources there for you available. And I think I included a couple of other video links on the reference sheet as well. Okay. So what is resilience? Resilience is often thrown around as this magical thing, but we don't really talk about like what it is. So resilience, psychologists define it as the process of adapting well in the face of diversity, trauma, tragedy, or threats. It's sometimes referred to as bouncing back, maybe from a difficult experience or whatever, but it's important to remember that this involves profound personal growth and work to build your resilience. Again, a reminder, trauma does not define you or your students or your children or whoever it might be you're working with. And resilient doesn't mean that a person won't experience difficulty or distress, but rather that they have the tools to help them overcome it or bounce back from it. And the road to resilience is likely to involve considerable emotional distress. However, it is not considered that resilience is something that you're either born with it or you're not. Psychologists and researchers consider resilience to be something ordinary, meaning that we can learn to increase our resilience and we can learn to boost our resilience and increase it. So that's pretty cool. So if you have experienced trauma, or maybe you haven't, and maybe your resilience is low or it's high, you can build that up. So we'll talk about ways to do that. So think of it like a muscle. And there's 4 core components to building resilience. And these are important to remember. We'll talk about them again towards the end. But for right now, I want you to just keep these in mind. They are connection, wellness, healthy thinking, and meaning. So those are the 4 core components for someone to have in order to build their resilience, or to work on building their resilience. So can we measure resilience? Why, yes, we can. So very similar to the ACE study, these 2 folks in 2006 and then again in 2013, Mark Rains and Kate McClin, developed the resilience survey. It was modeled after ACE, but it actually was not developed to be the opposite of ACE, but over time it has been used that way. It was actually originally designed to help parents become better parents, which is, I think, kind of cool. And this is only meant to prompt reflection and conversations to see that you may have some protective factors about ACEs, about building your resilience in response to ACEs. So the resilience survey is also included for you on the reference sheet, again, at drmcselfcare.com/resources. Go ahead and put in your email address there, and I will get the resource sheet out to you. Don't worry, I don't spam you with emails. I don't send a million emails after you give me your email address. I promise, maybe 1, 2 a month. And if you already are on my mailing list, signing up again won't sign you up multiple times. So if you request the resources from tonight and you requested resources from the first time, it won't sign you up twice. So what does the resilience survey look like? Well, again, modeled after ACE, but this time we want our number to be high. So there's 14 questions. There are things like what's on the screen. I believe that my mother loved me when I was little, on a scale of definitely true to definitely not true. So if that's definitely true, you would give yourself a 1. That's great. We want to be as close to 14 as possible as an indicator of our resilience. Again, not to make anybody feel bad, just to see where we are and maybe where we have room to grow. Other questions are, I believe my father loved me when I was little. When I was little, other people helped my mother and father take care of me. They seemed to love me. And there's a series of questions like that. Again, that link is available for you on the resource sheet. Okay, we're going to do a little practice together. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to work by yourself. And I want you to think about your own resilience. So chances are everybody listening to this or watching this later has experienced some setback or some challenge in their life, but you're still here. So that means somewhere along the way, you managed to recover from any past bumps in the road or anything like that. You managed to rebound, which is awesome. So I want you to think about how you did that. So maybe think about just one difficult setback or failure that you've experienced. And if you have a notebook or a piece of paper and a pen with you, and you want to just jot down some notes about that experience, but reflect on how you made it through. And see if you can ask yourself and recall. And if this is not something that's available to you right now, is not comfortable for you to do, totally fine, no pressure. You can just listen, maybe just practice your breathing. But think about what helped you get through. What did you do that maybe made the situation more difficult? If you faced a similar situation today, what would you do the same? And what would you do different? And if you can, wrap it up in a bulleted list on how you can successfully make it through any difficult situation. This is just a little, maybe just a little roadmap. Maybe you remember a friend that you called, or something that you did that helped you, or a conversation, or something somebody said to you. And you can create your own just little roadmap and bullet points for your best strategies for bouncing back. And I'll give you a couple of minutes to work on that. Great. Hopefully folks had a chance to at least start that, looking at documenting their lessons learned. And it's always something you can come back to and reflect on later. We're going to keep going through the presentation now, but just something to think about when we think about our own resilience. Think about all the ways we've been able to overcome any setbacks we've experienced in the past. So now we're going to talk a little bit about trauma and the brain and what it actually does to the brain. This is a PET scan of two brains. One is, on the left-hand side, is a healthy brain, so a PET scan of a normal child that has not experienced a traumatic event. And then we see the other side of the screen, which is a PET scan of an abused child's brain. So this is of a Romanian orphan who was institutionalized shortly after birth. And you can see the impact of what this person experienced, the extreme deprivation that they experienced in infancy. And the temporal lobes, and you can see in both pictures, in a typical developing brain, it's all filled in and colorful and beautiful and as it's supposed to be. And then we can see the other side where there's major areas of deficit and major areas that just aren't developed as typically as they could be on the left-hand side example. So this child likely experienced significant emotional and cognitive issues as a result. So when we also think about how trauma impacts our body, there are additional areas of impact as well. And there is, this isn't all doom and gloom. There is research, though, to support the brain is actually an amazing organ that we don't even necessarily, we're still learning so much about. So the brain can work to build new neural pathways. And this is why overcoming trauma and building resilience is something that we can do because of how powerful the brain can be. So additional areas of impact. So where else does it impact us? Well, hormone levels, the immune system, epigenetic changes, and neurobiological changes. We're going to talk a little bit more about each of those. So first, our immune system. So we know that the immune system is multiple organs and tissues and cells that make up and help defend us against any infections or allergies or any inflammatory reactions. So we want our immune system to function really well. Well, trauma is linked to atrophy, excuse me, why I can't speak this evening, atrophy of the spleen and lymph nodes and telomere shortening, and increased stress hormones, which actually impairs immunity and increases inflammation. So when you have someone with impaired immunity and inflammation, that increases the risk of developing other dis-ease, such as cancer or cardiovascular disease, diabetes, anxiety, depression, viral infections, etc. So when we think about a healthy immune system, and this is important to remember, we can also think about the ways that we make sure our immune system is functioning well. And those are by making sure we're resting our body, making sure we're getting proper nutrition, adequate nutrition. You have to feed your body, that you're doing things to reduce your stress, and that you're moving your body. Not to extremes in any of those categories, but those 4 ways actually help make sure our immune system is functioning in tip-top shape. So, in other words, practicing self-care. So this is your first indicator of understanding that there is an intersection between trauma, resilience, and self-care. And we'll talk more about that closer to the end. So keep that in your mind. When we think about our hormone levels, and I mentioned this a little bit in the beginning because we're in a global pandemic, a collective trauma right now. Everybody's in a little bit of a heightened state. So what happens in your body, we have a stress response, which is our fight or flight. And then you have your relaxation response, which is your rest and digest response. When you've been exposed to trauma and the chronic exposure to trauma, you can actually get stuck in that fight or flight. So that means your response, everything is elevated. Your cortisol is elevated, your adrenaline, which are your stress hormones, are elevated because they're perceiving a threat and they're trying to protect you. And your stress response is trying to protect you. But when you've been exposed to trauma, we can get stuck there. And if we're not taking care of ourselves, we can get stuck in that fight or flight response, that always kind of being on guard and being ready to fight. So this will also lead to high blood pressure, a weakened heart and circulatory system, and lots of other unpleasant things. And when we think about trauma and development of children, hormone levels and changes early in life like this, so really getting stuck in that fight or flight or having that constant battle, when brain development is at its most rapid, can actually have a dramatic impact on the brain architecture and function. So that's where we see like that brain scan when we had the very visible deficits in the development of one child versus the typical development of the other. Okay. So a little bit more about stress and what it does to our body. So we mentioned the fight or flight response. So this is where if we are under a threat of some sort, we want this to kick in. If you're being chased by a bear in the woods, You want your fight or flight to kick in so you can get yourself to safety. When that happens, when you are in this elevated state, your breathing is increased, your blood pressure is increased, your heart rate, metabolism, blood sugar, sensory awareness, adrenaline. We're elevated to get ourselves to safety. What becomes decreased in this is your ability to think, your ability to concentrate, your ability to be creative. Your immune system isn't functioning well, and your digestive system can suffer as well. So we don't want to be stuck here. But again, the chronic exposure to trauma without taking care of ourselves can leave us a little stuck here. And even right now, in the midst of the global pandemic, many people we're starting to see signs of those elevated nervous systems for sure. It's coming in through with our students that we're working with, as well as our colleagues, that they're struggling. People are struggling right now, and likely will be for years to come. Where we want to be is the rest and digest. So this is the parasympathetic nervous system, and you can see on the screen everything, it's the opposite. So now our breathing is decreased, our blood pressure, everything is good, and we're able to think more clearly and be creative and concentrate, as well as our systems function better, like our immune system and our digestive system. When you do the basic deep breathing like we did a few minutes back, you actually help stimulate the rest and digest response. So that's why make that exhale a little longer, and that this becomes your like number one go-to for a quick, easy way to just bring some calmness into your day, into your life, whatever. And it can be quick. 3 rounds, 5 rounds, repeat it as necessary. Really powerful. Okay. So when we think about epigenetics and the epigenetic changes that trauma can have on our development. So epigenetics is the study of how the environment and experiences can alter which genes sort of turn on and off. So for example, you may be born with the capacity to be tall and confident, but you're undernourished and abused as a child. You likely will turn into a stunted and fearful adult instead. So this is where our environment has a big impact on our development. So when we think about this, and this is a fascinating emerging area of research known as transgenerational transmission of trauma. So when we think about people here today who are descendants of Holocaust victims or survivors, or descendants of slaves, and other folks that have experienced that trauma in our history, and how that actually you're embodying that here today. I find that wildly fascinating. I don't know a ton about it, but I encourage, if anybody else is hearing that and thinking, wow, that's kind of cool. The book that has been recommended to me over and over again that I haven't gotten to reading yet is called In My Grandmother's Hands. And that talks about the transgenerational transmission of trauma. And I didn't think that that's just really fascinating research, and definitely something to kind of watch as how that will unfold in the years to come. And I think about that with my own family history and things that I know my ancestors struggled with, and challenges they had, and how that shows up in me and how I am here in the world. So powerful stuff for sure. And then lastly, again, our neurobiological changes. So we looked at that brain scan, but also it's important to remember that when we're born with 100 billion neurons. And that's actually, those are our brain nerve cells. And those are actually almost all the neurons that we will have throughout life. So you kind of get them right from the beginning. And that's how we develop vision and hearing and language and our higher cognitive functioning. So the more prolonged activation of stress hormones in those early childhood years can really reduce those connections, which is where we see difficulties in learning and reasoning and cognitive ability. And again, continuous trauma can weaken any remaining neural pathways to the thinking part of your brain, and it strengthens and overrides you into the survival part of the brain. So you can end up getting stuck again in survival mode, which is not ideal. Okay. Activities to modulate arousal. So I love this. And this is a series of slides that I'm going to save. They're on the reference sheet for you, which just give you a ton of activities. I don't know if folks listening to this presentation here with me tonight or afterwards on the recording work with children or have children, or even these are things you could do for yourself. I don't think there's any harm in doing any of these activities as an adult, regardless of what it says the age group is for them. However, so these are just some ways. So if you work with children or you have children, or again, for yourself, diaphragmatic breathing. So diaphragmatic breathing techniques. These are similar to what we demonstrated in the beginning. Diaphragmatic breathing is just really getting down into really filling that belly all the way, filling the diaphragm. It's how singers actually breathe. If you've ever watched an opera singer sing and you can really see the belly going in and out, that's diaphragmatic breathing. Or it's actually how babies breathe naturally. If you've ever watched a baby breathe, what happens is lifestyle tends to get in the way and somehow we think we're better or whatever and we stop breathing properly. So diaphragmatic breathing, like we were talking about in the beginning. So these are just broken down. I love these examples of activities because they're broken down by age group. So again, if you work with children or have children, or I don't think there's any harm in us doing them as adults either. So these are some examples of breathing techniques. And again, these are shared with you on that reference sheet. There's also some grounding activities. So grounding really, you can also call it mindfulness, really just bringing us down into the present moment, being in the here and now can be really powerful practice. So some of these are grounding techniques appropriate for down regulation. So if you are feeling really heightened or really just and like way up here, grounding exercises for down regulation is what you need, because you need to come back down. So things like listening to music or writing and drawing for adolescents or adults can be really powerful. Maybe for little kids, they can play with some glitter cream or smell something pleasurable, or even play with worry stones. I like to actually keep little doodads around my desk. I have some stones and stuff here that I actually keep and same concept. This is a rose quartz crystal. It's a heart palm stone. It feels really good just to have that kind of in your hand. It can be really soothing and calming. There's some additional activities shared for you here. These are for upregulation. So to ground us into the present moment, but to also increase the energy. So with little kids, maybe a round of I Spy, or for a little older kids, middle school, have children name 10 things they see in the office. Or maybe for adolescents, see if you can ask them to tune in and describe any physical sensations in their body. So as you can see, it's nice to think about them in the age brackets, but it's not, when we think about like for ourselves and stuff, we could totally do any of these, or, maybe break them down for more age appropriate, depending upon who you're working with and what you're trying to do. But this is very similar. This one here, have children name 10 things they see in the office. That's very similar to a mindfulness practice I usually share for adults and probably talked about during part 1. And we can actually do it now together. Look around the room that you're in and see if you can spot something of every color of the rainbow. Or if you're near a window, it's probably dark outside, but you can look outside and see if you can just take a minute, spot something of every color of the rainbow, just to help bring you down into the present moment. So there's also some movement breaks included for you on these slides as well. So things like hop like a frog, all the way up to Simon Says, or all the way up to maybe just turning on music and having a dance. That's like my number one self-care go-to. Or even taking a walk or doing some yoga poses. And lastly, or actually, I'm not sure this is last, but muscle relaxation techniques. So things like tense and release. So tense your muscles really, really tense, and then feel them release. And you can do that to different parts of your body. You can actually work the whole way down your body, tensing and then releasing every muscle group throughout your body, just to help bring some more relaxation and help modulate that nervous system. And this is the last one, talking about imagery. So these are some more techniques you can do. So again, broken down by age group. But I think those slides are really helpful depending upon what folks do for work, or if they're looking for other ideas of things they may want to do for themselves and help build up that personal resilience as well. Okay, and again, those are on the slide, on the reference sheet for you, which you can request at drmcselfcare.com/resources. All right, let's relieve some tension in our own bodies now. So I invite you, if it's comfortable, to just sit up straight where you are in the chair that you're in. And I want you to feel your feet firmly planted on the ground beneath you. And feel your body supported by whatever it is you're sitting on. Just be here in the moment. I want you to start by rolling your shoulders in a couple, just do, I don't know, 3 or 4 in one direction, and then whatever direction you started with, after 3 or 4, reverse it. Great. Now I'd like you to lower one ear to your shoulder. You should feel a nice stretch along the side of your neck. If you feel a stretch, please stay there. You don't need to go any further, but if it feels like you could go a little deeper, you can use your hand and gently apply some pressure. Again, listen to your body. No need to force it. You can come up from that slowly and then go to the other side. Same thing here. You might want to use your hand to help guide it. And you can let that go. Now let's look down at the ground. And look up and up to the ceiling. You can also use your hands here if you want to apply some gentle pressure to your chin. And let that go. Now you're going to look over one shoulder. And you can even use your hands here and gently apply some pressure. Going to let that go and then go to the other side. And let that go. And now what I'd like you to do is I want you to pretend that there is a Sharpie or a marker on the end of tip of your nose. And I want you to lift your gaze just a little bit. And now pretend there's a pen there or a marker. And I want you to draw circles with the imaginary Sharpie that's on the tip of your nose. And maybe you do 4 or 5 in one direction and then reverse it. This can be gentler for some people rather than full neck circles, which I don't always think feel good. So sometimes I prefer to do this. Great. Now I want you to take your wrists and clasp your hands together and just make some little circles with your wrist. You might hear some creaking in there. I'm feeling some creaking. And then see if you can reverse it, which will feel super awkward. One way is really easy to go, and the other way is not so much. And then I want you to keep your hands clasped, flip your palms towards your screen, and press them forward. Just stretch out. This is going to stretch out your upper back and your arms a bit. Excellent. And you can let that go. Now I'm going to teach you one other breathing exercise / releasing tension exercise. So what you're going to do, so remember our breathing. So in through the nose, out through the mouth. We're going to do some arm movements with it. So I want you to breathe in, and when you breathe in, you're going to lift your arms forward towards your screens. Then you're going to exhale and open your arms to the side. Then you're going to flip the palms, inhale again, lift your arms up. Exhale, bring them down through heart center. We'll do that again, nice and slow. So breathe in, out through the up front. Exhale, open them up. Flip the palms, inhale, lift them up. And exhale through heart center. Let's do that a couple of times together. Breathe in, arms forward. Exhale, open them up. Flip the palms, breathe in, lift your arms up. Exhale through heart center. So that one more time. Inhale, arms forward. Exhale, arms open. Flip the palms, inhale, arms up. Exhale, hands through heart center. That's just a nice way to kind of get the juices flowing, move those arms. And anytime we can connect movement to our breath is really beneficial for our nervous system, for our body, everything. So just decided to share that activity with you. And hopefully we're feeling a little relieved tension in our upper body, maybe from where we were feeling a couple of minutes ago. So now that leads us right into talking about self-care. And if you missed part 1, again, you can totally go back and we'll go more in depth into this during part 1, but you're going to get a little overview right now. So when I talk about self-care, I'm not talking about an occasional spa day or a bubble bath or a mani-pedi. Those are great. And those are definitely part of a self-care routine if you want them to be. But what I'm talking about is much more intense than that. What I'm talking about is really the daily process of getting in touch with how you like to take care of yourself, so you show up as the best you possible. That's much more powerful than the occasional spa day. So this is my favorite definition of self-care, and I'm going to highlight a couple more aspects of this definition. This is foundational work required, associated with positive physical, emotional well-being, and mental health. And this is protective. When you take care of yourself first, it's proactive and protective against the onset of mental health symptoms, job or school burnout, and can just overall improve your work and school productivity. So this definition comes from Dr. Cook Cotton, and I love it. We're going to talk about the different domains of self-care, and there's even an assessment that you can take. You can watch it in video 1. I lead you through it, or it's also going to be linked for you on the reference sheet. So if you want to take the assessment and get an idea of where your areas of strengths and weaknesses are as it pertains to the 10 domains of self-care, I think that could be really powerful to just have an understanding of where you're at right now. So when you neglect your self-care, you run the risk of experiencing a lot of unpleasant health consequences. And there's a selection of them for you there on the screen. We don't have to go through them. We probably already know how stress and anxiety and a lack of caring for ourselves shows up in our own bodies. because we're all guilty of this at some point, of not putting our needs first. It's the first thing that goes out the window whenever we have a competing priority or we're feeling a little stressed. We tend not to lean into that and take care of ourselves. We tend to just kind of neglect it even more. So I know for myself, I experience headaches, my eye twitches, and I have stomach difficulties. That's the main ways that I know when I'm not taking care of myself. So when we think about self-care, it's not optional. It's not something that we just put on a to-do list and then stress out about it. It's not selfish. Society makes us feel like it is selfish because we're not celebrated for using our paid time off. We're not celebrated for taking a mental health day in most situations. We're celebrated when we are busy, or we romanticize the idea of busy, or we wear being a workaholic as some badge of honor. Those are the things we end up getting celebrated for. So when we make that shift and start to prioritize ourselves, it becomes a bit of an act of resistance. So it's also not an emergency response or a quick fix. You can't just, drop down, do a little down dog once every 6 months and call it self-care and you're good to go. Not quite. It's not punishment or extreme. It's not dieting. That tends to come from a place of restriction that disconnects you from your body and not listening and honoring your body. It's not abusing substances. We can't just numb out and call it self-care, just like we can't talk badly about ourselves, even if we're trying to motivate. That's also not self-care. Buying something to make you love yourself more. I've tried. It doesn't work. Socializing for fear of missing out, or even just saying yes because you want to be nice, or anything that shames your eating habits or your appearance, that is not self-care. So what are these domains of self-care? So first, there's 10 of them here. And I'm going to give you just a very brief overview. And again, you can watch the first session in the 4-part series to learn more. And this isn't like to overwhelm anybody either. But these are kind of, when you think about what real self-care is, we want to think about these domains. So first, nutrition and hydration. So how we feed ourselves and how we honor our hunger and our fullness, and hydration, really, really important. You have to eat, you have to hydrate. It's really not a great habit to get into skipping meals, restricting your intake, that sort of thing. If this is an area that you struggle with, as a major area that I struggle with, I usually tell folks I'm actually in recovery for disordered eating, exercise bulimia, and atypical anorexia. So I know this is a hard area, but if you're interested in this, I encourage you to look into the research on intuitive eating, as well as the health at every size movement. Really powerful, science-backed, research-backed information there for you. Additionally, we need to exercise. You have to move your body. It doesn't have to be extreme. You don't have to go to the gym and strap yourself to a treadmill for days on end, but you have to move. So we try not to sit for long periods of time. So at the end of this presentation, I want to make sure you get up and do a little stretching, and that you're mindful of that throughout the day. The American Heart Association tells us 10,000 steps a day is ideal. More recent research encourages us to look at how many steps we're getting. And really, if you're getting less than 5,000 a day, you probably should reevaluate how you're moving your body. But it can be fun. You don't have to punish yourself or torture yourself. Find something that's joyful for you and do more of that. For me, that's always dancing. So if you happen to be a Broadway girl like me, look up 567 Broadway on YouTube. He has tons of YouTube videos and dance classes, and it's just a lot of fun. And it's all free content. He does have things you can purchase. The gentleman who started 567 Broadway, Joseph Corella, is actually going to be an upcoming guest on my podcast. Fun Dr. MC fact for you. Okay, our next domain of self-care, soothing strategies. this is what you engage in so that you're keeping that nervous system calm. So deep breathing, great thing to do. Maybe some of those other activities to modulate arousal are good. Or maybe you're like me and you like stones and that kind of stuff, or soothing smells or sounds can be really powerful in this arena as well. Then our self-awareness and our mindfulness, things that can support us here are like yoga, even that gentle kind of yoga breathing we did a couple minutes ago, connecting that movement to breath, bringing you down into the present moment. I shared one mindfulness technique earlier where we look around the room or look outside a window and spot something of every color of the rainbow. You can also do it outside, call it a rainbow walk, and really be in the present moment, be here and now. Another mindfulness practice that I love is to ask yourself every day, what went well? Because we tend to focus on what? The opposite of that. We second guess everything. We worry about what we didn't get done, what we said, what we should have said, what we wish we did, what we didn't do, and we get caught up in that. Instead, ask yourself, what went well? Additionally, you have to rest. Adults need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Did you know when you wake up in the morning, you should feel rested and restored? Not like you have to chug a gallon of coffee to function. So if that's how you feel when you wake up in the morning, you likely need more adequate rest. So play around with it, see what you can do. And in the first session, I do share lots of additional tips about how to improve your sleep. But really, pay attention to how you're feeling when you wake up in the morning and see if maybe that's an area that you could work on. And you may already be hearing these domains of self-care and thinking to yourself, you can see where maybe you have some areas of deficit or maybe where you have some areas of strength. And again, this isn't to make anybody feel bad. It's just to let us know where we're at and give us room to grow. Our relationship domain. We also need to make time and spend time and find people that are good to us, support us, encourage us, sustain us, believe in us, and all of that. And that we can feel confident if we say no, and we can stand up for ourselves in our relationships. And you have someone who will listen to you if you become upset. If you don't have someone like that in your life, I do encourage you to seek the support of a therapist or a counselor or a group of like-minded individuals that you can get in touch with. Our physical medical domain. It's important to go to the doctor to do those annual checkups and specialist appointments. If you wear glasses like me, go to the eye doctor and make sure that we're staying up to date with all of that with our physical body, as well as going to the dentist, maintaining hygiene and cleanliness for our bodies, refrain from smoking or drug use, and limit any alcohol intake. But it's also important to get in touch with those sensations of your body. There's a quote, I don't remember who says it. It may be unknown, credited unknown, but it's something along the lines of, if you listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream. So when you think about those little things, those little aches and pains and whatnot that you have, paying attention to what it is your body is telling you. And that's really, when we talk about intuitive eating, that's really getting in touch with the sensations of eating. We also just need to get into the sensations of living as well. And what is your body telling you? Are you tense? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you need to use the bathroom? Having those periodic check-ins with your body can be really helpful, just so you're seeing what's going on. Your body is really an amazing thing that does so many wonderful things for us every day, every second, every nanosecond of every day to keep us functioning. So listen to it, check in with it, remind yourself to do so, and don't let that physical care go by the wayside. I will say, however, if you're working with medical professionals, as I'm sure everyone is, make sure that the people you're working with are listening to you, respecting you, and that they hear you and they honor you. There are, unfortunately, some folks in the medical profession that hold bias against certain groups of people. I can say in my own lived experience, folks that live in larger bodies, there can be some bias against that, whereas the medical professionals may just laser focus on that. I've seen it happen to members of my family. I've experienced it myself as well, where you're not really being heard, you're just kind of being punished. So just keep that in mind. We're blessed here in Massachusetts that we have so many options. So if you do find that you're not in a great relationship with your medical professional, take the steps to get someone that will listen to you, that has maybe a more open mindset around certain things and whatnot. So you have a partner in your healthcare with you is really important. When we think about our environments, our next domain of self-care, we want to make sure when your space is cluttered and chaotic and disorganized, it signals to your brain that there's more work to be done. So it's really hard to relax and be calm, happy and healthy in a chaotic, cluttered space. So do what you have to do there. Maybe you do donations. You don't have to throw things out. You can donate things if they can resell things, but really start to get rid of things that you're not using, don't bring you happiness, are broken, have run the course of their usefulness. And I'm really guilty of this. I have a hard time getting it. I might need it again, but really it's an important habit to get into. And it's so easy too. You can even set up, there's several organizations that'll come right to your house. You put the donations out on the porch the morning of, schedule it in advance. They'll come right to your house, pick it up, all set. So this is important when we think about all the spaces you inhabit. So your home, your office, your classroom, your car, anywhere where you are, really as much as possible, try to keep that organized and decluttered so that you can be restful and relax in those spaces. Additionally, our self-compassion, you have to be kind to yourself. Those little inner voices sometimes are not kind, but you want to be careful to not use critical, judgmental, harsh self-talk, or even how you talk about yourself to others. You can kindly acknowledge your own challenges and remember that it's okay to be human and everybody else is human too. And that having challenges and setbacks are just part of the experience of being human, and that's okay. And it's also okay to feel your feelings. So if you need to cry, by all means, go for it. All feelings are valid and all feelings are worthy. And our last domain is our spiritual domain. This is where we want to see a larger purpose for ourselves in our work, that we know that our work has meaning. Maybe for some folks, they want to spend time in a spiritual place. That may be church or outside in nature, or perhaps in a meditation room of some sort, whatever that looks like for you. Or you want to spend time giving back to the community. So maybe you volunteer at a soup kitchen, or you just take out some time from your day to help someone else. This can really help us to continue to feel inspired and see our purpose in the world and make meaning out of our lives. So those are the 10 domains. That was a very quick overview of the 10 domains. But now what I want you to do is think about earlier in the presentation, we were talking about resilience, and I mentioned that there were 4 core components of resilience. So when we think about what we were talking about with trauma, and we think about resilience, do we start to see any overlap with how that self-care can help us with that? And I'll remind you of what those resilience core components were. Connection. Well, that sounds like the relationship domain, making sure that we have people to support us, encourage us, listen to us. If we become upset, and they respect us. Healthy thinking was another one of our resilience core components. Well, healthy thinking, well, that's self-compassion. That's making sure I'm kindly acknowledging my challenges, or when I'm falling short on my goals or not accomplishing enough. And self-awareness and mindfulness. So that's making sure that you're in the here and now. You're not worrying about the future. You're connecting that movement to breath. You're in your body. We think about meaning as one of the resilience core components. We just talked about that with the spiritual domain, seeing a larger purpose for ourselves, seeing that, and people that have been impacted by trauma don't necessarily naturally do these things. So some of this may seem like, well, yeah, doesn't everybody do that? Not necessarily. So making sure that we foster a sense of meaning for ourselves and others. And wellness is one of the major resilience core components. Well, if you practice even just some of the domains of self-care, ideally you would be proficient in all of them, but it's real life and you will have times where you're better at some than others. But generally speaking, if you practice the domains of self-care and you really attend to your foundational basic needs from that lens, you're going to achieve wellness. So that's where we can really see that self-care helps us to build our resilience and to take care of ourselves, that can help us to overcome trauma. So when we think about right now, what we're all experiencing with this global pandemic, it's really, really important that you put your oxygen mask on first, and then we can help others. So that by taking care of ourselves, taking our power back, setting those boundaries, putting our needs first, we're going to build our own resilience. Then we're going to be able to help other people. We're going to be able to overcome and bounce back from any trauma you may experience, but certainly this collective trauma that we're in right now. Okay. So when we think about our self-care routine, because ideally you'd get into a routine, you would have things that you do. I like to think of my own routine almost as like a bank. Like I have my bank of practices that I really like to engage in for my self-care. And they might be different from how you want to practice self-care, and that's okay too. It's called self-care. You get to decide what you want to do for yourself and your self-care. But I recognize that this can be overwhelming. I recognize that I've thrown a lot of information at you over the last hour, and that you may be thinking, 10 domains of self-care? Dr. MC, I'm lucky I can find time to eat dinner a day. I'm not going to be able to do 10 domains of self-care. That's fine. I encourage you to start small and think about little shifts maybe that you can make in your routine, or maybe just one domain. So if we think back to those 10 domains, and again, if you go back and watch part 1, this will give you maybe some more information and tips, but one domain, maybe it's rest. Maybe you're like, I don't get good sleep. So maybe you start to implement some little tweaks into your sleep routine to see how you feel. And then you can build on it from there. It's okay. Some days will be better than others, and that's fine. But generally speaking, I like to think of my self-care routine over the course of a week. So I know on any given day, I'm not going to hit everything. But over the course of a week, that's much easier to make sure that I do the things I want to do, that I move my body, that I feed my body, that I get good rest. Excuse me. That I spend time with people that are good to me, that I journal, or I meditate, or I practice yoga, or I have dance parties, like whatever it is I want to do that's part of my routine. Over the course of a week, I can hit most of those. And then you're good. You're worth it. Your health and well-being are worth it. Okay. I would like to lead you through a guided meditation before we end our time here this evening. I didn't want to end on the same activity that we did the first time, so I wanted to give you something different. And this is one of my favorite guided meditations. I did not write it. This is from the folks at Inner Health Studio. And I also included a recording to this on just my reading this guided meditation on your reference sheet. And we are going to come back together at the end of the guided meditation for just a little bit of a wrap up and if folks have any questions. So don't go anywhere yet, but I encourage you to sit comfortably where you are. Sit up in your chair. And again, we're going to feel our feet firmly planted on the ground. We're going to feel our body supported by the chair that we're sitting on. And this is called the calming color relaxation. To begin, make yourself comfortable. Adjust your clothing as needed and assume a comfortable position. First, before the calming color relaxation begins, notice how your body feels in this moment. Passively pay attention to the state of your body right now. Do not try to change anything. Simply notice how your body and mind feel. Feel your body begin to relax slightly as your shoulders drop a little lower. Your jaw loosens so your teeth are not touching, and your eyelids start to feel heavy. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and slowly breathe out. Now just notice your breathing. Your body knows how much air you need. Notice with interest how your breath goes in and out. Feel the pause after you inhale and before you exhale, and the pause before drawing another breath. Allow your body to relax and your mind to focus on the calming color relaxation. Allow the relaxation to occur naturally. Allow and observe. Create a picture in your mind of the color red. Imagine red of all shades. You might picture red objects, a red landscape, or just a solid color. Imagine red, all the different tones of red. Roses, bricks, apples, sunsets. Enjoy the color red. Now allow the color you are imagining to change to orange. Picture the color orange. Infinite shades of orange, flowers, pumpkins, carrots. Fill the entire visual field of your mind's eye with the color orange. Enjoy the color orange. Visualize the color yellow. See in your imagination all the various shades of yellow. Allow yellow to fill your vision. Lemons, flowers, fall leaves. Imagine the endless tones of the color yellow. Imagine yourself surrounded with the calming color yellow. Immerse yourself. Enjoy yellow. Let the color you are imagining become green. Fill your imagination with the color green. Endless shades and tones of green. Plants, leaves, grass. Imagine being surrounded by beautiful green, all shades, from the lightest to the darkest, bright green and subdued green. Enjoy green. Now see in your mind the color blue. Surround yourself with beautiful blue, unending shades of blue. Water, sky. Imagine blue filling your vision. Enjoy the color blue. Allow the color in your imagination to become violet. Focus on the multitude of purples around you. Flowers, eggplants, sunrise. Immerse yourself in the color violet. Enjoy violet. Now allow your attention to return to your breathing. Notice how calm and regular your breathing is now. Meditate on the calming color relaxation once more. Imagine the colors again, one at a time, starting with red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Now picture whatever calming color you wish. Do you have a favorite? Or a color that suits your mood right now? Imagine whatever colors you'd like. Allow your mind to be relaxed, focused, and calm. Enjoy the feeling of relaxation you are experiencing. Now it is time to return your attention to your regular activities. Become more alert with each breath you take, more aware of your surroundings. You can stretch your muscles and open your eyes, fully alert and calm. Thank you for allowing me to lead you through that. I hope you enjoyed that. I love guided meditations. I just want to take a nap right afterwards. And luckily it's getting close to bedtime, so we'll be able to do that in a bit. But guided meditations are a great way if you have trouble meditating or you don't know where to start, it can be a great way to just kind of focus on someone else's voice. And there's hundreds, thousands, if not millions of recordings in the world of different guided meditations, and they can be short. That one we did was about 10 minutes, but you can even find shorter ones that are even 3 to 5 minutes, however long you have, just to give yourself just a little break and a nice sense of calm. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. And again, there is a recording that lives on my Instagram page, but you'll have it here with the recording of this evening's presentation, but also there's a link to the video on my Instagram as well. Okay. So let's think about what we can do. Because I care about myself and others, I will practice self-care by. So now I think it's abundantly clear how important self-care is today and always, not just as a way to overcome trauma and build our resilience, but that certainly helps, but just in general, so we can lead happy, healthy, productive lives. So if folks want to comment in the chat and tell me something they want to do because they love themselves and others, how they want to practice self-care, that's great. If you don't, you don't have to comment in the chat, but I always welcome any communication that way if folks want to chime in. And you can keep it realistic. I prefer it. Don't tell me you're going to just start tomorrow doing all 10 domains of self-care, because that's unlikely. That'll happen. I need to get back to writing. Yes. Excellent. Also, hi, Tammy. Writing is a great, I assume that's a creative outlet for you. Excellent. Great. I'll practice self-care by moving my body more. Yes, Maureen. Good. Doesn't have to be crazy. Just, even that little bit of stretching we did, there's lots you can actually do from a seated position. There's lots of deskercise, as I've heard it called now. What movement that you can do that just feels good, get you back into your body. Focusing more on my space. Ooh, cleaning, clearing, making it more comfortable, nurturing, and soothing. Kimberly, yes, absolutely. Great. Awesome. Those are great starting points. And there's so much more. Again, maybe that's where you start. Maybe you add more. Maybe that's good for a while. But it's really important that we take ownership of our health and well-being, and that we put our health and well-being at the forefront of everything else. Remembering to say no. Yes. When I need more me time. Excellent, Wendy. Absolutely. Setting those boundaries can be really hard, but really important to do. Excellent. Thank you for sharing those. So let's see, we're just about at time for tonight. The plan for these sessions is to be about 90 minutes or so. We may go over and under as we work our way through the other 2 sessions that will happen in March and then again in April. But if you're interested in some resources for tonight, you can visit drmcselfcare.com/resources, and then I will send you the resource sheet probably sometime tomorrow or over the weekend. I'll get that email out to you. So it's not something that'll happen automatically, but I promise to send it to you. And lastly, if you'd like to connect with me any other ways, you can do so through Dr. MC's Self-Care Cabaret. You can find me on my weekly blog, my podcast, which comes out bi-weekly. And let's see, I'm also on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all the places you can find me at drmcselfcare.com. I do welcome the opportunity to connect with you on any of those platforms. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you further. And thank you so much in the chat. Thank you so much, Dr. MC, and not considering attending. It was a very long day. I'm glad that you came, Kimberly. Thank you. And yes, Tammy, thank you for recommending the podcast. Tammy's been following me for a while now. She's sat through several of my presentations and she keeps coming back for more, which is excellent. And that makes me so happy to see her face and other people that have been following me and that keep showing up. I think that's awesome. So thank you. That means the world to me. And yes, go Salem State, go Vikings for bringing me back and this honoring this time together and this opportunity to the alumni. I think is fabulous. And yeah, so if folks have any questions, I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes, or if we've had enough. When Kimberly's had a long day, so she's ready for a nap. But if that's all, then have a wonderful evening. I wish you well, and I look forward to seeing you in part 3 in March. It'll be here before we know it. Bye.